Could it be haste is making me? What's time at a thing that kill or keep a buyer or loser living? I gotta go faster, keep up the pace, just to stay in the human race. I could go supersonic, the problem's chronic. Tell me, does life exist beyond it? When I need to sate, I just accelerate into oblivion. Into oblivion.
Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to another fine episode of Record Breakers. I am PD Rave. I'm wearing a slightly different shirt from last week. Here with me, as always, are my quorum. We have Patrick.
Quorum?
I have a hat.
Drew. And we have Brett.
In the morning, and in the morning to you, and in the morning to all ships at sea, boots on the ground, feet in the air, subs in the waters, and all the days and nights out there.
This week we're doing we're nice. We're having fun getting in the swing of having guests on a regular. We have somebody that I'm going to hang out with in a couple of weeks in Chicago at ASIN. Bring us something interesting. We have my co-host at Halijuku, none other than Brandon Cooper, a.k.a. KingKaz. How you doing, Kaz?
As the stars align, someone else declined. Science.
Yes.
Wow, I thought you were Neil deGrasse Tyson there for a second. Weird.
So, Kaz, what do you have for us this week?
I have a motherfucking history lesson preferenced by the Book of Fugees, Chapter 12, The Score. And if you follow along, this record was released in the 96th year of God's Day. And year 96?
Of the Lord, the year of the Lord.
Of the day that the Lord spoke to us, and he said, that beeth the day that Jai Clef of the Wands will make a record that will change rap music for the foreseeable future. Kind of.
Alright, let's go around the horn. I'm gonna go let's start with Patrick. Patrick, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
This was an album that was already in my iTunes library, so that helps. I was familiar with it, but I don't think I had ever really given it the sort of critical listen that I give things when I listen to them for the podcast. So it was like, oh, I get an excuse to listen to the Fugees again. I'm good with this, and then things happened.
Drew, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I'm going to be honest and brutal. I was remembering my feeling when I heard the food.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wah. Get serious for a second? I thought I was going to effing hate it. Like, I was going into to grit my teeth and bear it throughout the entire record. I thought I was going to have to deal with it, and I thought I was going to come into the show completely shitting on Kaz. Just completely and utterly shitting on him. Worse than Brett did during Glassjaw and Swagger. Like, that's what I entered this album.
You were going to shit on him like he was playing StarCraft 2.
Yes.
To be fair, I was shitting on Glassjaw more than Swagger, but I was shitting on Swagger for his bad taste. Right?
Yes.
Brett, that's like half of the show. That's half the show.
Brett, what expectations did you have? I'm curious.
I don't know. I remember the 1996. I remember the summer when all the hits were being played. So I knew very little. I remember seeing that movie About a Boy where what's his name plays it on guitar as a little kid, sings "Killing Me Softly." No, I'm really not very well versed in the Fugees. I know them more as for personalities in the band than the actual music. But I really came in here blind, other than what was played on MTV.
Yeah. Cass, what would be the themes and elements that play into this album that we should key in on?
Like kind of this, this all goes into the history lesson, right? So, 96 is coming on after the year of really, 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 really gritty fucking gangster rap, right? Fucking G-Funk or whatever. And, like, if it was a good record, it was put out by Dr. Dre. You know? Like, and other than that, nothing else was good, you know? Like, nothing else really stood out. Unless you were...
Yeah, Coolio
unless you were
Gangsta's Paradise.
Well, okay, and Coolio, and unless you were at Bad Boy on the East Coast, and or the Wu-Tang Clan, like...
Let's not
nothing else
Coolio
really made
real
sense.
quick.
Hey, you shut your mouth. I will defend Coolio if I want to defend Coolio. I don't.
So
carry on.
You get to the year 1996, and the landscape of hip hop changes, and this is one of the records that changed it. And it changed it in the sense of catchy ass hooks, short kind of thematic songs with like kind of a story to tell, but not in the old way of doing it, in a more like musical sense. Because you gotta kind of stretch the imagination when you go into this record, because it was kind of a hope and a dream record, because their first record was trash. Their first record was terrible, but they were still able to get the money that they wanted and needed, and their record label was like, all right, you scrappy ass kids, like, let's see what you got going for you. And they built a studio, and they kind of jammed out music.
Yeah. And it's ushered in the idea of like an alternative hip hop of lyricists that spoke, you know, that was like, you know, brought in some of the artists like Wu-Tang and other things like that. Let's go around the horn. I'll go back to you, Brett. What would be the themes and elements that stood out for you? What did you think of this thematically?
Thematically, it was content and structure that to take a big wild guess. I probably am not very familiar with, but it was done well. The mix, the harmonizing was not overdone. Like it wasn't overly, you know, it was not to that point in music yet where that was the thing that you had to do to be considered a good lyricist or singer, was to hit all of the notes. But it was done well. It was tight. You could tell that it was a very, very well honed record. The obvious that everybody worked together. The beats were tight. The lyrics were on time. There was a proper amount of timing involved. It wasn't tripping over itself, and it wasn't unnecessarily fast just to be fast about it. Everything was well enunciated, and it really made it so that what was being said was meant to be heard. So overall, the execution was about as good as you could possibly be. And the chicken did not taste like wood. It was not that kind of storytelling. I was happy it wasn't that kind of storytelling. You know, though I like the chicken tastes like wood stuff for the cheese. You can't tell a serious story if you're, you know, fat boys huffing.
Yeah. Otherwise, for the sake of not going alphabetical, I'll go with Patrick. Patrick, what would be the themes and elements that stood out for you?
3 words. Three words. 2 of them are a name, 1 of them's a word. Fucking Lauryn Hill. I have since I saw Sister Act 2 had a Lauryn Hill thing. I don't know why. She to me, the biggest tragedy in music in the last 20 years is that Lauryn Hill lost her goddamn mind.
So was there a secret to Sister Act 2 back in the habit? Or you know, is that should be tragedy. Berg has not been a fake nun a third time.
I will that with Lauryn. I mean, so I don't know how much y'all read into Lauryn Hill, but Lauryn Hill lost her goddamn mind shortly after the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Just went batshit crazy, had like 19 kids. and never did
Well,
anything
hold
again
on.
of note.
If you pay attention to the "Killing Me Softly" video, it does say for her future reference that she gets out of music and has 12 kids. So she fulfilled that much of it.
But
Like-
okay, so what Lauryn Hill did was she recorded 2 legendary like hip hop records in the 90s.
Mhm.
Two. And never followed either of them up ever. Like there was a second Lauryn Hill record sort of, and there was the Fugees, you know, her and Wyclef hate each other now, and Wyclef's off picking up his guitar and playing weird little things. Wyclef with a
Being
guitar is the
elected
most
president of
hysterical
Haiti.
thing.
Well, also you have this thing, right? Like their first record, as I said in the beginning, right, was not critically acclaimed. Nobody liked it. So the fact that they were given the amount of money that they were given to be able to even make this second record was a hope and a fucking dream. And I think they put everything they had into it, and it skyrocketed them so much that they looked around that room at the three of themselves and were just like, and like Lauryn Hill and Wyclef were like, well, I'm all the talent. And they're like, what? No, you're not all the talent. I'm all the talent. Well, watch this. And Frost was just like, yo. And then I think he did a lot of drugs. So,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
His name was Frost. I wonder what he was into.
Prize.
Praz.
Oh, Frost.
I don't know. I want Frost, the unsung member. He was
He was like the Pete Best.
Praz's biggest hit
Frost was the Pete
outside
Best of the Fugees.
of
That's what I mean.
of the Fugees was Ghetto Superstar featuring Maya and ODB.
Maya.
The late ODB.
The late great ODB.
Oh, DB.
Ghetto Superstar.
Okay, we can stop that right now.
Yes. Drew, what would be the themes and elements that stood out for you?
One, I'm gonna lean into this and say I was surprised, by most of this record. As I said, my into the Fugees was sort of the singles, and those didn't really catch me in '96, I guess. Like, I didn't really care about them in '96. I didn't really like it. Like, I heard Lauryn Hill's voice everywhere. I don't really care anymore. But then I actually sat down and gave it an actual listen. And it was really well thought out. Like, if you listen to the lyrics and you listen to the beats and you listen to the ideas on the record, there is a succinct beginning, middle, and end. I think that's really kind of cool. They peppered
it's a
in...
score.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they composed it as such, which is, again,
I want for the record,
really surprising.
I am not the whitest dude in the hangout right now. For once, I am not the whitest dude. I want this to be noted. I am the second whitest dude in the room.
That's fine.
We'll celebrate it yearly.
But like, and that to me was kind of cool. There was a lot to this record I was surprised by. The sort of the theme to me going through it was one of sort of like awareness of either themselves or like the world around them, which I think is always a cool voice to hear in any music, especially hip hop. And that's just sort of what it was. It was really well composed and really well done and really well thought out, which I dug.
Yes.
It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Kaz. So we're gonna get into the key tracks. There's of course the elephant in the room, the track that everyone knows, the Roberta Flack, the cover of Roberta Flack's "Killing Me Softly." Everybody knows that one song, and it's almost even altered how people react to the original. But setting that aside, and I'm sure we're gonna get into that song, but setting that aside, what are some of the key tracks of this album?
Like, well, okay, so you got What did you put on here? All right, Ready or Not is definitely something that stood out. You know,
It's the
I
other
want to
single,
say
yeah.
they all stood out for the same exact reason, right? They were well put together. They had really fun videos that went along with them, and they were kind of the points that you were looking to get to, because Wyclef always saw this as like, oh, this is the score to a movie. So these were always like the big action scenes. Ready or Not, the score, Killing Me Softly, Fugees, were kind of like the big action scenes in kind of this movie that was going on in their head. You know, because you kind of have the ups, the downs, the love, the hate, the tragedy, the comedy, the romance that goes along in a lot of these records or whatever. So Ready or Not, Killing Me Softly, the score, which is so well put together, and so fun to listen to. Like, it was one of the first albums I could listen to from start to finish, even though the latter half of that record is just Wyclef trying way too hard. Like, because he went, I had this idea. You want to hear it and see what it sounds like? Okay, right? What do you think? What do you think? Right? Okay. But then I also had this idea, and you're like, I need to leave now. I want to go do other shit. And you're like, no. There's like 7 more versions of this one that I want you to hear, where I changed the symbols in it at the end, and I want you to tell me what you think. And you're just like, somebody stop you, like, please. Like, I don't need 4 versions of Fugees.
Yeah.
You could have stopped 3 versions ago.
Yeah. I almost kind of ignored, like we did with the Love Exterior, like I said with the Love Exterior, I kind of ignored that. Those are bonus tracks. It ends at outro. You can kind of just consider that the album. These are some bonus tracks, you know. These are the Nick Fury recruiting you into Avengers stuff, you know, in the Marvel movies. This is just like the extra stuff that's fun to watch and could be a little extra funness, but it's not part of the the movie. You know,
yeah. This in
it's not canon.
The hip hop landscape of now would have been on a mixtape. That stuff would have been left to a mixtape. Like, oh, this is the shit we weren't really sure about, but you can have it anyway. But Wyclef being Wyclef at that time was like, I am a musical genius, and you will hear everything I have ever thought.
What has changed about Wyclef from 1996?
He tried to almost be president of Haiti.
That and his hair got longer.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
But
it.
Otherwise, I mean,
he's still
anyone who's
otherwise
had a pass through Wyclef's The Carnival knows what Wyclef thinks about Wyclef.
He's got really. He can wear a pair of sunglasses like nobody's business. I mean,
that's true.
He's on sunglasses wearing pool.
He's got the shade game strong.
Yeah. That's right.
Game strong. All right, let's go to Around the Horn. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I guess I'll go with the elephant in the room first, because Killing Me Softly, didn't care for it when I was young. That was one of the ones that sort of turned me off of the Fugees. Like, I didn't really care for it. Coming back to it, fits with the rest of the record. Fits really well.
Mm-hmm.
Lauryn Hill has a great set of pipes. Sad that she has.
Lauryn Hill can do fucking, like, as PD always likes to say, fucking
vocal gymnastics.
Verbal gymnastics.
The VH1 Divas
gymnastics
stuff. The VH1 Divas vocal gymnastics that people who love.
But like Brett hinted on, she can do it, and it's obvious she can do it. She doesn't try to Mariah Carey the entire scale. And I appreciate that from a singer. She doesn't
because
try
you
to
can
jump
doesn't mean you could.
No hand waving.
Exactly. She restrains herself. And
Shut up.
and drunk as becomes Mariah Carey. Other than that,
sweet fantasy, baby.
How many mics sort of leads off the album, sort of showcasing them as a group, which I really, really dug.
Mm-hmm.
I love any hip-hop group that can come forth and their lyrics can flow together really well. and really succinctly. I enjoy that. And then Family Business, I think, out of the entire record, is probably like, of a record that was critically acclaimed for being super intelligent, I think was probably one of the smarter songs on the record. I think it was really well done, had a voice, the lyrics had a voice, the music in it sort of was semi, like, sort of a little bit, like, almost ominous and, like, low-key, and it was really, really cool to hear something like that from this album, and it was something I was not expecting. Like most of this record.
I think the other thing people always also don't give enough credit to is, and I generally hate this in most records, is the skits, right?
Yeah.
And the little interstitial stuff and stuff, like the Chinese takeout skit is so fucking funny. Like every time I hear it, I fucking laugh at that shit. It's just like, yeah, man, let me get some beef. What? You want beef? Like, no, man, I want beef to eat. Oh, you niggas come in here and think you gonna get beef? I'll give you beef. It's just like, it's so unexpected and slightly funny that it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah. All right. So, Brett, what would be some of the tracks that stood out for you? Did any?
The skits. The skits stood out. Mainly because that's something you wouldn't be able to put in an album in today. It was definitely a blast from the past.
It would be those would be an unpurchased iTunes track.
Yes, that I mean, like, you know, I could pull out any one of these songs and be like, okay, the vast difference between the three people that are talking into microphones and the way that it works together. It's all that on most of this record. It's done well, and it's a great mix of different styles that somehow worked out. I mean, they obviously were one of the most successful acts of the mid '90s, but not the skits. I'm gonna stick with the skits.
The skits. That's your answer. Patrick,
Brett's a man that likes his funny.
Patrick, what would be some of the songs that stood out for you?
I'm a big fan of Ready or Not, for two reasons, and this is the beauty of the Fugees and my girl Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill sings like an angel. We all know that because we've all seen Sister Act 2 because we all had cable when we were in high school, and it was I swear that movie was on every third day. Sister Act 2 on TV. Lauryn Hill, yes.
Yes.
But Lauryn Hill, more than I think any female rapper I've ever heard, has flow. And I have not heard one better. There may be, but she has a very unique flow. It is unique, it's interesting, it works, and it kills on pretty much every song on this album. But Ready or Not,
I gotta give them credit, right? Because you gotta realize, like, the other album that they had a lot of Lauryn Hill on it as well. And then you go into this one, and they're still smart enough to let Lauryn Hill handle a lot of the fucking weight of the record, you know? And that's just pure fucking genius to me, to like go like, no, we know where the bread and butter is. Like, it's Wyclef on the fucking music, and it's Lauryn on the vocals, and us just backing her up. You know?
Yeah.
Fuji La is really good. I mean, obviously, I don't really care about the remixes with the original, and maybe it's just me and my slight enjoyment of hip hop, but not deep knowledge. But the beat and like sort of the music sounds kind of like something RZA would make, in the best sort of way. Like, it's kind of dirty and gritty, and it has that, you know, the thing that makes RZA stuff RZA.
RZA, the rat from Muppets Take Manhattan?
Yes. Exactly.
Gonzo's pal? Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
You get him in a
makes
studio.
the best beats.
Yeah, that guy, you get him in the studio, he kills it.
I think for a song I've heard 5 million times out of all the songs I've heard 5 million times, it's aged better than most.
I still hear that 5 million times from all the times
and it's
I've
still
been
good.
at karaoke.
Because Lauryn Hill's voice is amazing.
I've heard varying quality versions of that song.
I was going to say. He's hearing it in karaoke, remember? He just said,
Oh.
I've heard it 5 million times in karaoke. It might not be that good.
Okay.
Yeah. So at
And-
varying levels of quality and sobriety, I've heard that song and it's been beaten into my brain. But it's still, you know, I in fact, you know what? I
Hearing it
skipped it.
properly. Hearing it properly.
Yeah.
The, the score I liked because it sounded like Wu-Tang and Black Star made an album together, and that was that song. And that's just it.
Yeah.
It had that vibe, and I like some Wu-Tang, and I love me some Black Star. So
Yeah, it's very evocative of the mid to late 90s hip hop, like Kaz
not
said. That
mid to late 90s hip hop as a whole, but the sort of more like I don't know,
a very specific style of mid to
the
late
more
90s
enlightened hip hop from the 90s before.
So, like I said, you come after this record, and that's where you get a lot of things like, you know, the Black Stars, all those kind of things, or whatever. The Roots kind of take off, and like I said, in this year was a fucking catalyst for hip hop because fucking Eminem, one of Eminem's first albums comes out this year. Fucking Reasonable Doubt. It was written. Tupac puts out two of his like most acclaimed albums before he gets shot, because he gets shot this year in 1996 and dies. And he puts out fucking Machiavelli and All Eyes on Me in this year. You know?
Yeah.
But even with all that, this record stood the fuck out amongst all of that shit. And just went on to like change hip hop a little bit, and it's so amazing.
Yep. So let's go back around the horn. Drew, what would be your thoughts on the whole as the album conclusively?
My thought would be if you were like me, and you turned it off because, unlike Swagger and PD and hearing it 5 million times, didn't make you love the song more, but made you hate the Fugees. And hearing the sort of having them beaten into your brain as being good, if that sort of thing in like 96, 97 turned you off of them, go back. Try it again. And that's the thing that I was glad about doing this show, is there are some things like this that come up that I didn't give a chance to after they first hit, because I was like, I'm just done. I don't care. And it's good. Like, I don't know.
Like I kind of knew I had a winner when Drew's just, you know, he kind of winced at hearing like, oh, the Fugees, but then I got that Snapchat of him in his car like, just shaking his head like, this is
behind the curtain a little bit. Behind the curtain a little bit. At work, I went into my car. Like, on a short day, they decided to give me a break for some reason. So I went to my car and I started listening to it, and I was like 3 or 4 tracks in. I think I was on The Beast, and I'm like, I'm gonna Snapchat Kaz real quick. And I just started Snapchatting him with The Beast playing in the background, and I just was kind of nodding my head for the entirety of the video Snapchat, and just let that roll.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what you get with this album. Patrick, what would be your conclusive thoughts?
This again, I've had it for a long time. I have not ever given it this critical of a listen, and it's one of the better hip hop records I've ever listened to. Period. It makes me like Wyclef, and I listened to the Carnival, and that made me hate Wyclef. Like, every time I see Wyclef, I just picture him with an acoustic guitar, playing the weirdest thing and singing in his Wyclef voice. You know the Wyclef voice. We all know the Wyclef voice.
The faux Jamaican.
It's like
faux Jamaican, even though he's a
Haitian,
American kid from Haitian descent. You know.
Yeah, and it just I don't like that Wyclef, but I like this Wyclef where he mostly just raps, and he's kind of good at that when he's just doing his thing. And you know, we didn't talk about Praz a lot. Some of Praz's verses are fantastic. Like, he just quietly hangs out there in the background, you know, just plotting out his world domination with Ghetto Superstar, and sings a couple of really fantastic verses on this album.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Brett, what would be your conclusions about the album?
One of the best things to come from this album is the fact that we're reviewing it and our pal Matthew Squiggles Walton will have to listen to this, and I will hear him talk to me about this album. It's an album that people ought to listen to, because not everybody was there in 1996 listening to stuff.
Squigs was but a twinkle in his father's eye in 1996.
I think he's old enough to have been around, but he wasn't around.
Yeah.
Not old
He
enough
was
to
like
remember.
a fetus.
Yeah, he was not watching the music videos before Beavis and Butthead. You know, it was. It's a thing of an era that I don't think, unless you were there, it's sometimes hard to believe that was so near in the past. But yeah, you know, it is after Coolio, Gangsta's Paradise. I'd have to say is probably better. I haven't seen Coolio hasn't really succeeded further. I know he has a cookbook, but he has not really succeeded as much as I would say the members of this band. So go listen to it.
Okay. The greatest thing that I can say about Coolio before we get too far from Coolio.
That's my next week's album. But go ahead.
The good thing that he did was the theme song to Keenan and Kel, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he should have put his goddamn record out in 1996 when all the good fucking classic hip hop albums have seemed to come out, and he would have been the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. So I mean, it's very much of a time. It's very much evocative of that 1996 in hip hop. And I think Brandon Kaz put it really succinctly when he kind of explained it. It might give you, if you remember the stuff, it might give you, if you don't remember it or remember a lot of the music that spawned from it, it might give you a kind of a Seinfeld is unfunny moment where it's like, this is 90s hip hop. But then you realize how much of it spawned and how much of it bore itself, and therefore kind of how important it is. And then you realize, oh yeah, this is a fantastic record. Kaz, what would be your conclusive thoughts about the album?
It's a record that stands the test of time as a record. And because like Drew said, the individual songs, you'll hear them and sometimes you're like, oh man, fuck that song, I don't want to hear it again. But when you listen to this thing in its environment with the skits, like in the order that they put them in, like it's so good and it's so much fun, and it kind of takes you back to that era, like because of the way that it's designed. It's designed to kind of put you in this space and just kind of let you sit and let it wash over you for that hour or however long it fucking is, because it's way too long because of that latter half. But
because there's 5 different foods.
Like I said, it's,
no, like I said, those don't exist. That's not canon.
It was one of those things that when me and my friends got our hands on it, we could turn it on and it would play until it turned itself off.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you can do that with an album or a record or anything, that's fucking good. You know?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause there are records that I claim to love, and like it'll get to track 6, and I'm like, oh, I fucking hate that song.
Like this is like a certain artist we know from the ROK that had his debut album. Is like, hey, this is an awesome album. This song not so much. But that is, of course, our conclusive thoughts. Let's get to the main event of the evening. As I say every week, because I have no original ideas. Let's get to the haiku reviews. Let's see who I start with. I'm going to start with Drew. What is your haiku review?
Where was I back then? Was I deaf in 96? Glad I get it now.
Nice. Patrick, what is your haiku?
Slice of perfection, the finest reggae hip hop, Lauren fucking Hill.
Of course, my haiku review, lyrical goodness, that memorable cover, that 90s hip hop. Brett, what is your haiku review?
Midwestern white man who has no comprehension of the importance.
Nice. And of course, last but not least, with the last word, is Brandon Cooper, a.k.a. KingKaz. Kaz, what is your haiku review?
A history lesson not to be forgotten. Froz, I really don't know what to say for you. But Lauryn Hill and Wyclef, hell yeah!
I wanna double check that syllable count, but we'll do that later.
There's some
Judges.
No,
Kaz
there's
went
not anything missing. There's way
Kaz
too
went to
much.
public school.
There's way too much.
Haiku 575. Do you know what a syllable is? Jesus.
Put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
All right, let's just leave that. Let's just leave that there because you know what? That's just Kaz.
Oh.
Of course.
I didn't have anything to say about Froz. Like I sat here, I was like, oh, it's just a lesson. Lauryn Hill. I was like, oh fuck, I gotta mention Froswell. Well, damn.
Maybe it was the right syllable.
All right, so
Go on.
that was that. You can, if you're following along, you can check that out on our playlists. We have them, are curating them, we're maintaining them as best we can. We are. Let us know if there is a particular music service that you wish for us to maintain a playlist, and we will do just that. Of course, on those services will be next album that we're going to review, and that's going to be courtesy of me. I've been debating
Julio?
even up
Julio?
to the point. Me, none other than Petey Rave. No, we're gonna have. I've been debating what to do. There's a couple albums that were thrown around. I think I'm gonna go with something interesting and safe. Back to the '90s again. I'm gonna go with Soundgarden's "Super Unknown," an album that's celebrating its 20-year anniversary this year. So
Was it released in '96?
94. That's
Oh, then it don't mean shit. If it wasn't released in '96, it didn't change history.
Yeah, Super Unknown by Soundgarden. It's going to be interesting to have us discuss this. But that is that. You can see us all over the internet. Patrick is at The Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Bibbard, HIBBITYBABBARD. Drew is at Extrusive for X. I am at PD Rave. This guy over here is at KingKaz everywhere on the internet. Check out his About Me, his Twitter. You'll find out all about his when he finally puts his website up, maybe. So at some point. The show's at 4 Record Breakers, recordbreakers.com, rebelli.net, iTunes, Stitcher. Subscribe, share, like, review.
What's our email address?
recordbreakerspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Twangy.
Annyeong.
Cheer. Cheer, 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 cheer.